Alright students, I'm making this short video to clarify our congruent chords, arcs, central angles theorem. As you can see on this slide, that there's really kind of three ideas that we associate with this theorem. That within one single circle, or within two or more congruent circles, so circles that have the same radius, we can conclude that congruent central angles are going to have congruent chords. Additionally, congruent chords have congruent arcs. And lastly, this comes around full circle, so to speak, is that congruent arcs have congruent central angles. So I understand how you could read all of this and still be a little bit unclear on the meaning. So let's look at this next slide. We're given these two circles, one with a center of O, the next with a center of P. And we're told that angle O is congruent to angle P. So if we think about that, we're being told that the central angle right here, so this angle formed by BOC, is congruent to the angle formed by DPF. So we're told that our central angles are congruent. We're also asked to name some other congruencies. So going back to that theorem, we said that central angles have congruent chords. Remember, a chord is a segment that intersects a circle in two places. So BC, that is sort of highlighted in blue, kind of tough to use this highlighter on screen, BC and DF, these are both chords. BC is the chord that's made from angle BOC, and DF the chord from DPF. We can see that point B and point C lie on the circumference of the circle. Same is true with D and F. So those chords are congruent. Again, when we talk about chords, they're segments, they're line segments. So this is how we would represent that congruency. Segment BC is congruent to segment DF. Now we said there's a third congruency, and that is the arc itself. So this arc with the endpoints BC is congruent to this arc with the endpoints DF. And again, when we're talking about arcs, we use this notation. We use the arc to actually show now that we're talking about an arc and not a chord or segment. So those are the three congruencies. Now, going back to what was on the slide before, oops, not sure how quickly I can do that. I'm going to have to go back a few spaces. It also said that congruent arcs have congruent central angles. So when you look at this slide, I told you originally that the angles were congruent. I could have instead told you that arc BC is congruent to arc DF. And from that, you could draw the conclusion that angles O and angles P are congruent.